Hello, and thanks for being here. Welcome to my channel. My name is Chrissy Hodges, advocate for OCD, particularly Pure O, which is also the title of my book, Pure OCD. And I am a certified peer support specialist working with people worldwide to help provide support and also referrals for therapists. Wherever you are in the world, we'll be able to help find a specialist who can help. In OCD, NoCD is an app that provides support and forums, but also they provide telehealth, and they are worldwide. So if you want to check out their platform and if you're looking for therapy, head on over to treatmyocd.com. So today, my dog's he's having a reverse sneeze, so if you hear that, that's him. I just first want to apologize about my hair. It looks like I stuck my finger in a toaster today. What the fuck is happening? Anyway, I just wanted to come on and do a quick video. This is a little bit off of the topic that I did before. Don't worry, I am going to get back to talking about OCD and OCD symptoms, but I think it's also really important to talk about recovery, what that looks like for people, and what people believe it should be, which is really misleading. So today I wanted to talk to you about what it is like to live in recovery with OCD and what that was like for me when I figured out what that entailed. So, just to kind of recap, when we live with OCD and we don't know what it is, first of all, and it feels so real for so many years, especially when it's sexual, violent, taboo, intrusive thoughts, things that you just go, what in the world is happening here? It feels so real. We feel like it's part of who we are. We feel like it's part of our identity, and we're terrified of that, right? Well, then eventually, and you're here, so obviously this did happen, eventually you find out, oh my goodness, this is a diagnosable and treatable mental illness, but then you'll question that, right? But I'm the one that doesn't have OCD, and I'm probably the only person that meets all the criteria, but then I just don't have it. So then that tends to become an obsession in itself. But then, if you are able to move on and get treatment and learn to manage OCD, I can just describe what happened for me. So I, if many of you know my story, I lived for 12 years with this. There was no internet at the time, so I couldn't Google my symptoms or anything, which is probably good and bad. But I had a suicide attempt and hospitalization, and I was diagnosed and then spent a full year on medication, which was really helpful for me at the time. But then I wanted more. I wanted to get some sort of therapeutic tools. So I was lucky to be able to work with Dr. Stephen Phillipson years and years ago through phone sessions. And I remember thinking to myself when I was going into treatment and even during treatment, oh my goodness, when I get better, I'm never going to take advantage of a moment that OCD isn't here. And I would reflect back on how all the grieve-worthy points of how OCD had stolen my life. It had stolen all this time and milestones and things like that. And I just thought to myself, I will never allow myself to take life for granted if I can just get through this OCD. And in fact, I had religious scrupulosity at the time. So I would pray that. And I would say, if God, if you could just get me through this, I'll never go a moment again without, praising whatever. And then here's the deal. I got better. And I remember Phillipson telling me this. I was like, life will be so much better when I, not living with the symptoms, which, by the way, it is better when you're not suffering 24/7. But I think what happened is I dove directly into that black and white thinking, right? Of it's going to be wonderful every day. I'm going to open my eyes and be so grateful, and I'll hear birds singing, and there'll be rainbows, and there'll be, sorry if that triggers any of you with sexual orientation OCD, but there'll be all this stuff, and then I'll never suffer again. And I remember Phillipson saying, Chrissy, life is hard. He didn't say that. He said life is shitty. And he said, with or without OCD, life is not going to be great every moment of every day. And I remember feeling really disappointed about that, and I thought he was full of shit. And I thought, well, whatever, I'll show him. And the reality is that that's what happened. I got better, and I remember even in, the first few weeks of not having debilitating 24/7 symptoms, finding myself just engaging in life and not suffering and feeling this relief. When I would think about it, I would feel relief, but the other part of me was pissed. I was like, are you serious? This horrible illness had just plagued me and pulled me around on a leash for all of these years. And then I did this treatment, and now I'm just supposed to go about life like this didn't happen. And that actually was this split for me, where I just was basically like, well, then fuck it. And I escaped where I lived and came out west. I still live in Colorado, actually. And I just thought I was angry. I wanted there to be this big celebration in my mind, this big feat, this big excitement. I mean, and, not trying to throw my family under the bus, but in a lot of ways, that same year I graduated from ERP, I graduated from college with my bachelor's. And I remember having a celebration to celebrate my graduation. And I walked out on the porch that night, and I just stood there and I said, I am more proud of surviving OCD than I am with this damn degree. And that wasn't acknowledged, right? There was no celebration. And it felt sad for me. It felt like there was something missing. And I've done videos about this before, so you probably know where I'm going. What was missing was my ability to grieve what I had just gone through. Grieving me, and I just put a post on this on Instagram, so if you want to read more about it, go up to @PureOChrissy. I was scared to grieve. I remember when I got better, even though I felt this letdown almost of like, this should have been bigger. This should have been more celebratory. I remember thinking, I am not going to grieve. I am not going to feel sorry for myself. I am not going to be a victim. I developed that mentality of this, I'm going to forge on in my life, and I'm never going to think about OCD again. It's never going to bother me again. And I like slid down the slide of denial. I go right into it, right into the fire. But that was important for me at that point. I needed to be in denial for a little while, I think, to even just know how to move on with my life. I was 21 years old, 22 at that point. I had no idea who I was. I had been, under the thumb of religious scrupulosity at that point for 12 years. I didn't even know what I believed at that point. I didn't know anything about me. I had been a slave to OCD. So I think denial gave me the opportunity to explore life. But unfortunately, that anger festered inside. That shame, that loneliness, that guilt, the inability to connect to Chrissy, who had suffered all those years, because I was too afraid of being weak. I was too afraid of being a victim. Grief came many years later, unexpectedly, when I relapsed when I was in my 30s. And a peer support specialist, you may know this already, but it's really important. I had a peer support specialist. That's what I do for a living. And this person gave me permission to grieve. He said to me, why wouldn't you be angry? Why wouldn't you be sad? Why wouldn't you feel this remorse for all the time that was taken away, and the fact that you got treatment and it was just this, okay, now continue on with life, and let's not think about anything that had happened. Why wouldn't you feel that way? And just being given the permission to feel that allowed the grief to flow through me. And then I started doing advocacy, and I started connecting with all of you and doing work that pulled me more toward accepting who I was with this and the entire experience. So I think that there are a lot of points in this video. There's nothing really in particular other than sharing with you the aftermath can be difficult. It can be hard to grasp. It can be hard to process or even know who you are. Some people are really scared to get better. I understand that. I didn't know who the hell I was without OCD. I had had it since I was 8. Yes, I was lucky to be able to afford and be able to find someone who could give me treatment, but it was almost, at times it was like pulling me into treatment because I was so terrified of what I was going to find out on the other side. I was terrified of what I'd missed out on, of who I might be when OCD pretty much defines everything about you for so long, it's really scary to think, who am I really without this? So in conclusion, this is what I know now. And this might change in 5 years or 10 years. What I know now is I am who I am because of my experience with OCD. I would not have been able to say that 10 years ago. I would have not wanted anything to do with it. But I am who I am because of that. I'm able to connect with you because of that. I'm able to be this person who has a different worldview than I would have ever had without OCD. And I'm lucky. I wouldn't understand empathy the way that I do now, or even compassion. And seeing who I am, a lot of you ask me, do you have OCD every day? Do you do ERP every day? I don't do ERP every day, but I have adopted a way of handling my brain that's ERP based. So being able to see when I'm doing compulsions and choose whether I want to do compulsions or not. Some days I choose it. Some days I don't. A lot of it depends on the stress. But yes, I have an OCD every day. And why? And if that makes it scary for you, just hang on just a second. I have accepted that my brain operates that way. We are not talking about the OCD that I had when I didn't know it was OCD, when I was just suffering and fighting against my own head. I have accepted that my brain operates. My amygdala operates a certain way. It communicates differently with my frontal cortex, which is bad. So I've accepted that that's part of who I am, and that's how I interact with the world. And I have the choice to change my behavior and my reactions. And I'm not even going to say some days I fail, because if I said that I failed sometimes, that would just be saying that I am failing at life, which reiterates the point of earlier. Life is hard. Life is hard with or without OCD. Some days we make big mistakes. Some days we have big wins. Some days are just neutral and boring. Some days you feel like your brain's on fire. Life is hard, and life can be harder with OCD, but I want to leave you with this. I have found a beautiful life, beautiful connections with people. I feel a deeper connection with people, I think, because of OCD, and my work is meaningful. My life has become meaningful because I constantly work on accepting who I am with this disorder. So I hope in any way that might help you. I sometimes just like sharing stories about my recovery journey, and I hope that clears some stuff up for you if you're in that space, or if you're struggling, or if you're even kind of worried or scared about getting treatment because you don't know what's on the other side. I mean, the reality is what's on the other side is what you make of life in general. So it's good to see you. Thanks for being here. I hope you have a great weekend, and I'll see you next week. If you're interested in peer support or referrals for therapists, head on over to ChrissyHodges.com, and I'm on Instagram as well at PureOChrissy. Bye, y'all.